Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing down a massive trap that almost every growing agency eventually falls into. We're going to uncover exactly why vague, fuzzy commitments to quality are literally the thing holding your agency back from scaling gracefully. Look, every agency out there talks a big game about delivering great work, right? But honestly, very few actually define what that quality looks like in hard, measurable terms. And those vague commitments, they leave way too much room for inconsistency, especially the second you start taking on more clients. So we're going to break down the concrete, non-negotiable performance standards that give your team a real target to aim for and give your clients the total confidence they actually deserve.
To put this into perspective, get this, a staggering 64% of agencies that actually define specific measurable performance standards report way more consistent client satisfaction scores compared to the ones just relying on general effort. Just think about that for a second. If you're running your business by just telling your team to do their best, you are entirely missing out on the secret sauce that top-performing agencies use to drive loyalty. Defined standards completely remove the guesswork.
So here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover Section 1, the vague effort trap. Section 2, the power of measurable standards. Section 3, the 6 essential benchmarks. And finally, Section 4, maintaining quality at scale.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the vague effort trap and the myth of trying hard.
We all want a team that works hard, absolutely. But effort alone is a surprisingly dangerous business model if it isn't directed properly. When an agency runs purely on general effort, the whole approach is ambiguous. It's a tangled mess of individual discretion. It's like trying to bake a complex cake without a recipe and just hoping for the best. But when you implement defined standards, boom, you suddenly have a concrete target. It gives everyone on your team a shared reference point, which naturally makes your agency highly reliable. You absolutely need to be operating with that concrete target.
Moving on to Section 2, measurable standards and the power of measurement.
Once you spot the flaw in just relying on general effort, you've got to replace it with something stronger. And the crucial point here is that when your team is just guessing at what quality means, your clients get a completely different experience depending on who happens to handle their account that day. Without a shared reference point, your client's experience basically becomes a lottery. Think about it. One account manager might think a fast response time is 48 hours, while another treats it like a 5-alarm fire and answers in 48 seconds. Measurable standards ensure every single client gets a winning ticket. It brings order to the chaos.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 6 essential benchmarks. These are your operational pillars for scaling up.
These aren't just polite suggestions, these are the concrete pillars that separate the true professionals from the amateurs. Standard number 1 is all about communication. You need a clearly defined response time window, often called a service level agreement or SLA. Instead of leaving client communication up to whoever happens to check the inbox, you set a strict, non-negotiable rule. Maybe it's a 1 business day turnaround for standard messages or a 2-hour window for urgent issues. What matters is that it's realistic and you actually enforce it. This ensures every single client feels heard no matter who is managing their account.
Now, Standard 2 demands a maximum acceptable bug rate at launch. And listen, for critical bugs, that target number needs to be as close to absolute zero as humanly possible. By defining exactly how many minor post-launch issues are acceptable, you're giving your development and QA processes a highly concrete target to hit. If you start tracking this and you see the bug rate creeping up, well, that's your measurable early warning signal that your testing procedures need to be tightened up way before the angry client emails start rolling in.
Standard 3 is maintaining a realistic project delivery accuracy rate. You need the massive, overwhelming majority of your projects to actually hit their original estimated deadlines. Look, we all know agencies are notorious for chronically optimistic estimates that just lead to repeated painful delays. Setting a hard standard right here forces your team to focus on accurate scoping and honest timeline setting. It keeps the projects on track, and more importantly, it keeps your clients happy.
For Standard 4, we're shifting from the timeline to the actual product itself. Setting a minimum site performance benchmark is completely non-negotiable today. Every single website you deliver should pass defined technical standards before it ever goes live. Things like hitting strict Core Web Vitals thresholds. And guys, this isn't just a nice-to-have best practice anymore. This standard literally protects your client's search visibility and ensures a solid baseline user experience. It completely stops your agency from launching sites that look incredibly pretty on the surface but run like a lawnmower under the hood.
Standard 5 focuses on the aftermath. Because what happens when things inevitably go sideways after a project goes live? You absolutely have to have a consistent post-launch support response standard. You cannot just pull a disappearing act once that final invoice gets paid. Your agency must define exactly what response times look like for post-launch support. It manages client expectations up front and guarantees they aren't left stranded and frustrated when they need you the most.
Finally, Standard 6 is your target client satisfaction score. By drawing a hard line in the sand, let's say a 95% satisfaction target across all recent projects, you gain a real, measurable way to track if all those other standards are actually working. You gather this data through simple post-project surveys, and if a project falls short of that line, that is your automatic trigger to immediately review your operations and find out exactly what went wrong and why.
Let's wrap up with Section 4, Quality at Scale, and exactly how to maintain those standards.
Because honestly, with those 6 benchmarks firmly established, how in the world do you actually maintain them when your agency's workload suddenly explodes and you're bursting at the seams? The secret is a highly strategic division of labor. One of the absolute best, most effective ways to maintain your standards at scale is by partnering with a premium white label WordPress provider like Viral Chili. Viral Chili basically acts as your ultimate scale multiplier. Your in-house teams get to focus heavily on scoping, designing, and delivering the big new projects, while your white label partner is fully dedicated to handling all that crucial post-launch support and providing flexible capacity. You are effectively splitting the bandwidth so neither side ever gets overwhelmed.
Having this additional white label bandwidth from a trusted partner like Viral Chili acts as a strategic release valve during your craziest, busiest periods. It's exactly what helps you consistently hit those strict response time standards we talked about earlier. It prevents your quality from slipping when your internal teams are stretched entirely too thin across a dozen simultaneous client requests. In short, it ensures that your high standards actually survive your agency's success.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to evaluate your own agency's reality today. Really ask yourself, are you just putting in general effort and kind of hoping for the best? Or are you hitting a defined mark? Are you delivering the kind of measurable, trackable reliability that turns a casually satisfied client into a long-term, fiercely loyal partner? It is time to define your standards, measure your results, and scale up with absolute confidence. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.